Hello and welcome to part one of a video series on building your first SYSVIEW batch reports and utilities job. In this video, we will be covering the following items: defining user-level PARMLIB and template libraries, defining your first BRUTIS definition. We will cover a subset of BRUTIS commands. Next, we will be introducing the concept of symbolic variables with the concept of job correlation. The last topic we will cover is the ability to drill down into your job output. We will follow up with a summary. This video is designed for you to follow along in your SYSVIEW session. You can pause the video to perform the action as we go along. Let's start with defining user-level PARMLIB and template libraries. The BRUTIS feature extends existing SYSVIEW technology in template libraries and symbolic variables by adding new BRUTIS PARMLIB definitions. Make sure you view the Introduction to SYSVIEW Batch Reports and Utilities video to understand BRUTIS components and workflow. SYSVIEW has a multi-tier library concatenation lookup process. The system-level libraries are ones that we ship with the product. We provide out-of-the-box reports and utilities using these libraries. The next level are the site libraries. These libraries can be used to define reports and utilities that are available to multiple users of SYSVIEW. The last level is the user level. These libraries are optionally defined by individual users to customize SYSVIEW, and in the BRUTIS use case, it is where you, as an individual user, can define jobs. And this is where we will be defining your first BRUTIS job. The first thing we want to accomplish is to define your user PARMLIB and template libraries. Issue the SYSVIEW libs command. The libs command shows all of the SYSVIEW library types and shows them at each of the levels that we just covered. The display shown here only shows PARMLIB and template libraries, but your display will show other types. You can find these on your display, but you may have to scroll down. If the row showing a type value of user has a data set name other than undefined, then you already have the libraries defined and you can skip over this slide and the next slide. If you cannot execute the libs command, this may be due to a security setting. But you can also issue the query command to view the user settings for the PARMLIB and template libraries. Use the query commands as shown. If either or both are not defined, the value will show as null. Let's go ahead and define your user PARMLIB and template libraries. Allocate the two partition data sets with recfm equals fixed block with an LRECL of 80. You can pause here if you'd like to define those libraries. Once you've defined your libraries, the next step is to set those values in SYSVIEW. You can use the libs command as we showed in the previous slide to simply overtype the undefined value with your dataset names. If you cannot access the libs command, you can use the set commands listed here to do the same thing. Issue the set lib cache off command to prevent your user members from being cached. We will be making changes and this will help simplify the steps. Once you've set your library names, issue the profile save command to make sure they get stored in your user profile. Next, let's get into the actual BRUTIS work. There are several use cases for jobs in BRUTIS, but we will start with a very simple one, executing a fixed batch job that requires no input changes. Edit the template library that you created earlier and add member user1cmp. You can come up with your own naming convention, but for now, use this one. Let's use the example here, which is a simple IB copy compress of a PDS library. Give it whatever job card that you need to run at your site. For the in and out DDs, supply a PDS dataset that you can compress. Go ahead and pause if you need to, define your job, maybe submit it to make sure it runs okay, then resume the video. Now that you have your template JCL created, the next step is to identify your JCL to BRUTIS. You can do this in member SVWX BRUD of your user PARMLIB, which we created earlier. The define statement is used to define a batch report and utility job. We will start with a very basic definition in this video. Give your utility a name like myCompress and a description. Identify your template JCL member, user1CMP, using the template parameter. And finally, give it a category. For now, you can just use myUtility. Categories are a simple way to organize your jobs, and we will see that later. Go ahead and pause the video to define your PARMLIB member with the definition above. Once you've completed the definition, you can resume the video. Congratulations! You've defined your first BRUTIS job. Now let's see how we can interact with BRUTIS commands to list, submit, and review the output for your job. In this next section, we will look at a subset of BRUTIS commands. Issue the BRULIST command. BRULIST has several different screens, but the default and primary summary screen displays the list of defined jobs. Your display should show more than we have here. It will show the SYSVIEW out-of-the-box reports and utilities. Jobs are organized by category, then by name. If you don't see your job, then issue the reload subcommand from the command line to rebuild your BRUTIS definitions. You should now find your job under the myUtility category that we used for the sample. To run your utility, simply type sub on the line command input area and hit enter. You will see the submit message showing that the job was submitted. Normally at this point you would continue doing work as part of your SYSVIEW workflow, and when you are ready to look at the status of your job, you would issue the BRUJobs command. You can also issue the jobs line command from BRULIST to find any jobs by the BRUTIS name. Go ahead and issue BRUJobs. One of the special features for BRUTIS is to find BRUTIS launched jobs apart from your other jobs. Don't be surprised that you don't see your job right now. We are missing one special ingredient. BRUTIS uses the JCL uJobCore parameter in order to find BRUTIS jobs. We purposefully left that out of our JCL definition, but now let's see how we use the job correlation with BRUTIS. And that brings us to our next section, introducing symbolic variables and job correlation. One of the primary functions of BRUTIS is to build or fill out symbolic variables that can be used in your JCL to build dynamic JCL. We will cover symbolic variables in more depth in the next video, but for now, let's use it in conjunction with job correlation. The value for the uJobCore parameter for BRUTIS is BRU underscore followed by your BRUTIS name. You can hard code that with the first example, but the best practice is to allow BRUTIS to fill in this name. BRUTIS builds several symbolic variables at the time you submit your job, one of which is the correlation value that BRUTIS needs. This variable is BRUDEF underscore correl ID. We will cover more of these auto-defined variables in part 2 of this series. There's a third way to define job correlation, as well as the entire job card, and that is using the job card directive, and we will cover this in the next video as well. Let's use the symbolic variable BRUDEF underscore correl ID. Edit your template JCL member and add the uJobCore parameter on the job card as you see here. You can pause the video now to add this parameter. Once you've saved the member, you can resume the video. Issue the BRUTIS command in SYSVIEW and submit your sample compress utility using the sub command as we did before. And again, use the BRUJobs command or the jobs line command to view your job's execution status. BRUJobs should now show your job, the queue it is on, and if it is complete, the completion code. The last feature of BRUTIS that we will cover is the ability to drill into the job output file produced by the report or utility. From the BRUJobs command, use the select line command to drill into your job output. You should see a screen like the one here. This is a view of all the JES output files starting with the JES message log, JCL, etc. This is not typically what you want to see first. You really want to see the utility output or perhaps the report if the job is a report. So we are missing one important definition item. Let's take a look at what we can change to make our drill down experience better. Modify your BRUTIS definition member in your user PARMLIB. We need to add one more parameter to our definition, which is the DD name parameter. The DD name parameter identifies the most important output file or DD name for the job. This is the file we want to drill into from the BRUJobs display first. There are several other parameters like the step name parameter that you can also use if your job has multiple steps. Go ahead and pause the video to make the change above. Once you have saved the definition, resume the video. Once you have made your update to the definition, issue the BRUTIS command. You should see the DD name field filled in with sysprint. If not, then issue the reload subcommand to rebuild your BRUTIS definitions. Note, you will only have to reload your definitions while you are making updates. Next, issue the BRUJobs command. The updated DD name should be reflected here as well. Finally, issue the select line command to see the sysprint output. You should now be in the sysprint output file for the job. Your output might look slightly different. We run the Broadcom PDS-Man product, which replaces the IAB copy functionality. So that is what is being displayed here. If this were a report job, you would be directly into the reports output. Great job! You've managed to define your first BRUTIS job. Let's summarize what we've learned from this lesson. First, we learned about SYSVIEW libraries and library concatenations. Although we used the PARMLIB and template libraries for this BRUTIS example, there are many other use cases for using these libraries, including user commands, user line commands, and dashboards. You can explore these concepts in tech docs or using the topics command. Next, you defined your first BRUTIS definition and JCL sample. The sample was to create a job that can be executed without any required input changes. We will explore more use cases in the next video. We learned how to use various BRUTIS commands. We introduced the concept of symbolic variables in context of the job correlation and how BRUTIS dynamically sets variables and uses the job correlation to find jobs. Finally, we saw how BRUTIS gives you the ability to drill into a specific job output file to get to the information that you need quickly. Remember to look for the next video in the series to see more BRUTIS capabilities.